Have you looked at the world recently and just thought, what on earth is going on? All the conflicts, the weird alliances, the chaos. It feels like someone just threw out the entire rulebook. Well, you're not wrong. According to our source material today, that's literally what's happened. So let's dive into this wild new world and try to figure out where we're all headed. And this quote? Man, it just nails it. The stability we all kind of grew up with wasn't some law of physics. It was more like a fragile agreement, a story that we all agree to believe in. And that story? Well, the final chapter just ended. So, what was this old world and why did it fall apart so fast? To really get a grip on where we're going, we first have to understand the world we're leaving in the rearview mirror. So let's do a quick flyby of how global power has shifted over the last 80 years or so. Okay, so right after World War II, you had the bipolar world, two giants, the US and the USSR, in a massive staring contest. Then, boom, 1991. The Soviet Union collapses, and suddenly we're in a unipolar world. The US was the undisputed heavyweight champ, but that era, it's over. Now, we're in this messy, unpredictable, multipolar world, where you've got several different powers all trying to grab the steering wheel at the same time. This brings us to a phrase you hear all the time, the rules-based order. But what does it actually mean? I mean, there's no global police force, right? No one to enforce international law. The truth is, it was a shared fiction, an agreement that worked mostly because the most powerful country, the United States, made sure it did. Now that its influence isn't quite what it was, those rules are starting to look a lot more like suggestions. So how did this happen? It wasn't overnight. A huge part of the story is how the West, especially Europe, spent decades basically weakening itself from the inside out. Think about it. When the Soviet Union disappeared, the West lost its great rival, its main reason for being so unified. That constant feeling of danger was just gone. And without that pressure, what happened? It got comfortable. It got complacent and started looking inward instead of outward. And just how comfortable did it get? Well, look at this. This is kind of staggering. Europe has only 12% of the world's population, but it accounts for 60% of all the welfare spending on the entire planet. Now, that's an intense focus on domestic comfort, and it absolutely came at the expense of strategic thinking and global strength. For a perfect example, look at Germany. In this new era of feeling totally safe, they decided to shut down their nuclear power plants, a stable, reliable source of energy that they controlled. And what was the immediate consequence of that decision? Well, it made Europe's biggest economy dangerously dependent on Russian gas. You couldn't have handed a strategic rival more leverage if you tried. It's a textbook case of prioritizing feeling good in the short term over being secure in the long term. And the UK wasn't much different. It let its manufacturing industry crumble, it kept shrinking its military, and now, get this, the amount it pays in interest on its debt is on track to be double its entire defense budget. You just can't be a serious global player with numbers like that. You know what they say, nature abhors vacuum. Well, geopolitics does too. This weakening of the West created a massive power vacuum, and believe me, it did not go unnoticed. Other countries are now rushing in to fill that space. As the West was looking inward, rivals like Russia and China saw their moment. They started to push, to test the boundaries, to see just how much they could get away with. They were basically betting that the West was either too distracted or too weak to do anything about it. And this helps explain some of the more aggressive American foreign policy we've seen lately. The source material suggests it's not the cause of the chaos, but a symptom of it. It's America recognizing that the old game is over. It's looking around and saying, hey, if we're now in a world where everyone does what's best for them, then we're going to do what's best for us. Okay, I know this is all very high-level global chess match stuff, but here's the kicker. These huge shifts have very real, very tangible effects on your daily life, your job, and yeah, your wallet. So let's bring it right down to your kitchen table. How does a multipolar world and a weaker West actually impact you? The answer is probably a lot more direct than you realize. Let's just take the UK as an example. We talked about its soaring debt. That's a symptom of a much bigger problem. As the UK's influence has gone down, so has its economic vitality. In fact, on a per-person basis, the country's actually poorer today than it was back in 2006. Let me just put that another way, because it's important. It means your money doesn't go as far. The economic slowdown that's tied to this global decline means you have less purchasing power. A less influential country tends to be a less prosperous one for its citizens. And it's a pretty simple equation, right? The more unstable and dangerous the world gets, the more money and attention has to be diverted to defense and foreign crises. Every dollar, every pound spent over there is one that can't be used to fix problems right here at home. Now, as if all of that wasn't enough to handle, there are two massive curveballs on the horizon that are set to make everything even more chaotic: nuclear proliferation and artificial intelligence. Put yourself in the shoes of a smaller nation. The old security blankets from the superpowers are gone. So in an every nation for itself world, what's the one thing you can get to absolutely guarantee you won't be invaded? A nuclear weapon. That logic is spreading, and it's making the world dramatically more dangerous. So we're facing two giant threats at the exact same time. On one side, you have the ultimate weapon becoming more common in a world with fewer rules. On the other, you have a technological revolution that's about to completely rewrite our economies and societies. And AI is way more than just a productivity tool. We are talking about technology that could automate entire professions out of existence. Just imagine the social instability that creates. Millions of people out of work, needing new kinds of support systems, all while global tensions are already sky high. It is a perfect storm. So that's where we find ourselves, standing at the end of an era, watching the old map get torn up. Now, history tells us moments like this, these great unravelings, they usually end in one of three ways: a long period of chaos, a massive global war, or a new power rises and writes a whole new set of rules. The only question left is, which one is it going to be?